Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Fandom podcast. Did you forget this show existed? Probably, because this is only episode like 5 or 6. And the reason why is because, well, you should never have too much of a good thing. And the Fandom podcast is a good thing, or at least, God, I hope you people think so. But enough degrading myself. Welcome back. I am your host, Matthew Kearns, and with me today we have, if you were on Twitter, you probably know this man if you're in the space of film, television, pop culture, particularly if you're a fan of a specific medium. We have Michael Kaye. Michael, how you doing? Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. As Matthew just described, I am a very passionate fan of animation. I host a podcast with my co-host Cameron Ward on RenegadePopCulture.com called Renegade Animation, and basically we just go for sometimes we try to keep it like 2 hours, but sometimes it'll go over, sometimes it'll go under, and we will talk about pretty much as much of the medium as we can. We mostly keep to like new releases, like new movies or TV shows, because with all the streaming services, there's like a million new things each week, and we try to keep up with as much as we can. Sometimes we'll go and revisit some classic stuff. Like my one dirty secret is that I haven't seen all of like the Studio Ghibli movies, so we've been kind of.
I haven't seen a single one of those, so you're above me. Yeah, well, you hear that, Kristen? Still haven't watched any of them.
Ooh, ouch.
That's a burn on me as well for something I'll tell you off air.
But yeah, as I was saying, pretty much every week, Cameron and I will go. We'll talk a little bit of like trailers, but we mostly focus on reviewing a bunch of new movies and TV shows that are released weekly. And the last thing, I don't know when this episode will be up, but one of the most recent movies that we've talked about was Pixar's Turning Red. Have you had a chance to see that yet?
I have not.
All right. Well, it's on Disney Plus, and it is amazing. It's the best way I can describe this without getting too bogged down in spoilers is it's basically the fluffier version of The Incredible Hulk.
Okay. I did read a review that said, as a 35-year-old white man, I might not be able to connect to this. By the way, I'm not 35. I just read that review and thought it was stupid. Dumb people out there. So Mike already kind of spoiled my only question I ever had to ask, which is, what did you come on the Fandom podcast to talk about? Clearly, he came here to talk about animation. So, Mike, the one question I'll ask, and then I'll turn it over to you. You were someone who's very passionate about specifically this medium of film. So I want to ask you, what got you into animation when you were younger, and what makes it, at least to me, your predominant favorite form of film and television?
I'll be honest, the answer is a little bit boring because it's almost everyone's answer. I was born in the 90s, and specifically that was like in the heat of the Disney Renaissance. So you had things like Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, The Lion King, and I'm pretty sure The Lion King was, if not my first film I saw in theaters, then at least the first one that I owned on VHS and probably wore that tape out. But those movies plus things I was watching on TV, like Batman the Animated Series, Animaniacs, a lot of those shows on Kids WB, that kind of laid the foundation for my love for animation.
Yeah, for me, I'm not too certain how often I've talked about it, but the first movie I was ever obsessed with was The Iron Giant. Brad Bird's The
Nice.
Iron Giant. And you talk about wearing out a tape. I own 2 VHSs of Iron Giant. And the reason is because one of them, my original, is unwatchable. Because for any younger viewers out there who don't know, but VHS, it's analog tape, and the thing about it is if you rewind it too often, it just gets, I don't know what it is, how the technology works, it just kind of fades. It's the reason why it's famous. Like if you rented like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the Phoebe Cates scene, you could not watch. Well, I watched Iron Giant so many times, the whole movie, the tape is just dead. Like nothing is on there. There's no previews. There's no nothing. We had to get a second tape of Iron Giant because I watched that movie so much as a kid.
Were there like specific scenes that you would like rewatch and rewind
No,
constantly?
just the entire movie.
Nice.
I just the entire. That's why the tape is. There's no previews because I don't know about you, but as a kid, you'd always put the tape in. It'd always be at some either right at the end or at some random point. You'd have to press rewind, and you'd hear that. There was always the slow build up, and like, and then you'd be like, ah, okay, I can hit play now. Yeah. So, talk about Turning Red just for a second because you brought it up. I haven't seen the movie yet, but something funny is I saw the trailer and I didn't know much about the movie, and then I started to look into it more. My son was born in '97, so I'm a '90s baby, but I grew up in the early aughts. The fact that the early 2000s is apparently now so long ago that Pixar feels okay with doing a nostalgic throwback movie. Oh god, I felt like have you seen Saving Private Ryan?
It's been a minute, but yeah.
You know the shot of Matt Damon to where he's staring at Tom Hanks and it fades into the old. That's what it felt like when I read that. I was like, oh god, no. And then I found out Ice Age turned 20 years old this year,
Yeah.
and oh god, I'm just done, man. Oh god. Oh,
See,
I
I
don't
was
like it.
born in '92, so I felt that age uh when I saw the first trailer for Turning Red had the Backstreet Boys song
Yeah,
Larger Than Life, and I could just feel like the gray hairs coming.
like I know that song. I remember when that song was so popular, it was on the radio. But me and Mike can talk about being old later. So you mentioned the Disney Renaissance. Now I want to ask an animation fan like you, because I've had this discussion with a couple of people. In your opinion, where does the Disney Renaissance end? What movie is the last film in the Renaissance for you?
I can give you two answers.
Okay, double it up. I like it.
So on the one hand, first of all, I have to ask: have you seen the documentary "Waking Sleeping Beauty"?
No, I have not.
Okay, that one's also on Disney Plus, and it's
Okay.
basically it basically describes the Disney Renaissance as starting with um, the Great Mouse Detective and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and ending pretty much with The Lion King, because by this point, Jeffrey Katzenberg has left the company, and a year or so before that, Frank Wells, the president at the time, passed away, and it like this movie goes into a little bit more of the drama between Katzenberg and Michael Eisner and all of that. So on the one hand, you could say The Lion King is the last film in the Renaissance, but the other answer would be like Tarzan being the definitive end.
See, that's what I say. I always say Tarzan is the last of it.
And that's a fair answer too, because even though Tarzan is not like a traditional musical, you know, Phil Collins wrote an entire album of music, and it does kind of seem like the movie was like it feels like. And sorry, Pardes, I know how much you love this movie, but it does feel like the movie and the soundtrack were kind of written parallel as opposed to, you know, a more homogenous production.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I'm not sure if you follow Doug Walker at all, but he did a review of Tarzan not too long ago, and he talked about that. And he actually did this thing to where he, like, I think it was the Son of Man montage, and he showed, he was like, the scene with the music, the Phil Collins music, but then he just put like stock like music, and he was just like, yeah, you see, like, it still works. It's the animation, like, the song's good. But so do you say, because I know I interrupted you, I apologize. Welcome to the Fandom podcast. Matt ignores his much more knowledgeable guest on things, but so for you, I've heard this Disney documentaries answer, and I might have heard yours, but what is your answer? What is the end of the Renaissance?
I think I would go with Tarzan.
Okay.
And there's a little bit of personal bias in there because one of my other favorite films from the 90s was Hercules.
Same here. One of my favorite Disney movies still.
It's a bit lower on the list because it's just that one's just not as strong as Aladdin, which is like my actual favorite.
Ha! I get it. Ironic. Get it, guys, because Hercules is strong. I'm here all week.
But yeah. I still think the music rocks. I think the animation style or styles, because they blend a couple things together.
Yeah. Well, that was the whole Renaissance, was a lot of particularly 2D and 3D melding, which is really cool.
Oh yeah. I think one of the first instances outside of Toy Story that I really remember the use of CG in a Disney movie was the cave scene in Aladdin.
Yeah, when they're escaping the Cave of Wonders. Yeah, you're
yeah, and not all of it like holds up. Like some of those shots, like, you do kind of see their age.
Yeah,
but that doesn't take away from this, like, the sequence itself.
It's funny you say that, because me and my family, we went to dinner this past Saturday, and we were talking about Shrek, and we were like, when you look at Shrek now, you're like, compared to, Turning Red and stuff like that, you're like, yeah, the CG is like, but you have to remember, like, that was like infancy of this stuff, like Toy Story is the biggest example. If you want to, like, you show a kid Toy Story who just saw like Turning Red, it's just like, the humans look like mannequins.
Yeah.
And the toys look, well, it's also kind of funny when you just compare to, like, you compare Toy Story 4 to Toy Story, and you're like, well, there's still toys, but holy crap, have they just improved upon? And that's just, it's the building blocks. I think it's the and funny enough, I can mention them in the same breath as Pixar, ILM, George Lucas. Like, it's always like, when you take the first steps, it's always gonna look a little bit, it's always going to age the quickest because you're the building blocks. Like Phantom Menace in 1999 is incredible. It still does look great, but when you compare it to like CGI now, you're just like, well, come on. But you're like, well, that ILM was doing that before anybody else. It's to quote Moneyball, first guy through the wall always gets bloody, always. But that is kind of the fun thing. That's even just Disney. You look at Snow White. Snow White's a beautiful movie still, but it does not hold the candle to, movies that came well after it. But you always have to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Which is the cool thing. And I, as someone who loves mostly older movies, I notice that stuff. And by the way, for all three of you, I'm able to mention ILM because ILM was in Pixar. Was an offshoot of ILM for a while. It was their 3D department. George Lucas owned it with Steve Jobs, and Pixar is actually the reason why Steve Jobs got Apple back. Do you know that story?
Vaguely. I know Steve Jobs was like on the Disney board for a while.
Well, he famously got kicked off of Apple, but then he worked with George Lucas and pretty much created Pixar, and then when they sold it to Disney, he just had the money to be able to buy his way back into Apple. That's at least the understanding I've had the story. Someone in the comments is going to be like, but who cares? Whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, just anytime I can mention George Lucas and his contributions to film, I gladly will. Because that man did a lot of great stuff. And there's another filmmaker that I know recently, an old video resurfaced that you wanted to talk about, which was kind of the inciting incidents. Completely wrong phrase. It sounds like something bad. It's the positive influence that led to this episode. So I'll let you take it away, Mike, and talk about this. This very small filmmaker from 70s and 80s. I'm not sure if anyone's even heard of him anymore, but it's just, you could go ahead and talk about it.
So, a couple weeks ago, or maybe about a month ago, there was like this viral tweet that went around featuring a young, beardless Steven Spielberg, just kind of musing about how much he adores animation, like just the creative process around it, how much these animators love to, they pour so much into their craft. And like the whole point of this is that Spielberg's saying like every director should be an animator, because they know, these are the people who know like exactly what they want for a film or a short or anything. And this was circulating around the same time that the hashtag New Deal for Animation has been really picking up steam. And for those who don't know, the animation industry right now, it's not in a good place, and that's mostly because they're not getting paid as much as they are deserved. I think like a writing gig for like an animated television show pays about like a third, if not less, than a live action show, which is completely unfair. And that's just one example. There's also like the amount of crunch time and mandatory overtime for storyboard artists, animators, in between artists, assistant producers. There just needs to be a change in the industry.
Yeah, I unfortunately I don't really know. I love movies, but I don't really get much into the business. I do know, and this could probably turn into its own discussion, that this animation in general has always been this for no particular reason. It's like, well, there's movies, and then there's animated movies, and I don't understand that. And maybe it's the generation, which I think, I honestly don't know all these I's and Z's and crap. I feel like, just given my age, I'm like right under your generation, because you grew up, and then I'm more of an early aughts kid, but we grew up in kind of a great time for animation, because we had, between film and TV, I mean, we had DreamWorks had just launched in the mid late 90s. Then you had, on television, you had Cartoon Network really took off and did everything they did in the early aughts. Grown Ventures of Billy and Mandy, Foster's,
Samurai Jack,
Kids Next Door, Samurai Jack, Justice League. Just so many incredible things that, like, how could you not? How could you not think of it in the same vein as like live action? I've never understood it, and particularly I feel like in the last couple of years there's been this weird notion of like, well, animation, that's for kids. It's like, what are you talking about? And I've always not taken offense. Mike probably takes offense. For
Oh, absolutely, I take
he's the
offense.
personification of animation. He takes offense for it. I've always just been like, well, okay, if you're trying to downgrade it by saying that animation is the kids' medium, that makes so little sense, because if that is apparently to these people the medium that you introduce your kids to film and television with, shouldn't it be more important to put even more effort into those projects? Because those are the stories that are going to influence not just you kids and the types of movies and shows they're interested in, but like the type of people they're gonna be, in a way, depending on how big a fan I guess they are of the medium. But I just never understood that argument, particularly when there are animated movies that are for kids that grown adults have very visceral reactions to, and we may get into those here. Mike, I will allow you to get on your Apple box or soapbox, whatever you want to, and respond to these people who probably aren't listening to the Fandom podcast, but still.
This is what I tell people all the time. Quality does not have a target demographic. So, like, just because something is intended for kids, that doesn't mean adults can't enjoy it if it's well written, if if effort is put into the world building, the characters, the humor, because a lot of these shows are written by adults, and most of the time, like, sure, if it's like something that's IP driven, like another Batman show or one of the 500 DC direct to video movies, like, yeah, they will, they're making these movies in kind of an assembly line matter, but they're still humans who have their own artistic influences. So they're gonna like inject all that stuff just naturally in anything they work on. So that's why I usually tell people quality has no target demographic, because as long as something's good, anyone can enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, this was written, and when it came out, people looked at this as a children's story. I would like to just, from the literal first issue, I would just like to read to you the final moments from this children's story, mind you. Let's just see. It's the fugitive who ran past me, the one I didn't stop when I had a chance, and a short distance away. My fault. All my fault. If I had only stopped him when I could have, but I didn't, and now Uncle Ben is dead. And a lean, silent figure fades into the gathering darkness, aware at last that in this world, with great power, must also come great responsibility. Yes, this children's story that ends with the hero believing he is the reason why his uncle, his father figure, is dead. Oh, yes, just put this right with the Three Pigs for your children's night stories. I am so sick and tired of just all that comic books, Star Wars, like all these. It's just this, oh, well, it's for kids. Oh, it's a space story for kids. It's like, no, that doesn't mean anything. You just because kids can watch it doesn't mean that it's some lesser quality. It annoys the hell out of me, particularly for animation, because you look at movies like Shrek, and that's like, okay, maybe you can say, but like, that is a family movie first and foremost, and family and kids thing is like, okay, Baby Einsteins, that is for kids.
Yeah.
That is for kids. Teletubbies is for kids. Okay? By the way, I watched Teletubbies when I was younger, and it was incredible, when I was 3. But, like, my parents would get nothing out of it. But you're going to tell me my parents got nothing out of Shrek? You'd be crazy, because literally last Saturday, that movie came out over 20 years ago, we were all still quoting Shrek. My parents and us included, because that's just good filming. I think animation, the cool thing is it just allows it's different than film because it allows you to do different things. It allows you to do things that you sometimes aren't able to. I think one of my favorite examples is Star Trek. The original series, I love it, but obviously, just given the time it was made, and even at the time, it was a very expensive show. But just given the budgetary restraints of it being a 1960 show, they couldn't do as much as they wanted. But when they went and they did Star Trek the animated series, one of my favorite things was, well, at that point, it was just like the limit was your imagination. So you saw so many more different types of aliens and all this stuff because they didn't have to pay for some suit and figure out how some dude would walk past camera. They could just be like, well, we could just draw that. And that's awesome. And I think that definitely influenced later Star Trek projects that came that had bigger budgets for things. So yeah, I mean, Mike, do you have anything else you want to say or on that topic, or is there another topic in animation you want to move on to?
Just to piggyback off what you said about the lack of limitations, I think that's like probably one of like the top 3 reasons why animation is my favorite medium, because animation you can do you can do anything, and we even brought up like the advancing of technology earlier, and that allows movies like Into the Spider-Verse or The Mitchells versus the Machines to really play with different art styles and really mix things up in a new and refreshing fashion.
Oh my god, I'd love Into the Spider-Verse, and now I'm gonna have to watch it. But it was on TV the other week. It was one of those things to where it's like you don't plan on watching a movie on TV,
but once you click on that channel, you're just kind of stuck there.
Just like I'm watching Into the Spider-Verse now. That's what I'm doing, and I was so happy because that's probably like my second favorite Spider-Man movie of all time. That is such a great movie. Oh,
I love it to pieces, and I'm so excited for the sequel coming out in October.
The one thing that upsets me is I think Chris Pine is one of the greatest depictions of Spider-Man, and the odds are there's no way he can be in a sequel because it just completely underwrites Miles' character. But that's the one. Like, that's such a small thing, but oh man, I can't. I'm just thinking about all the things I love in Into Spider-Verse. That's mostly because I just read from Spider-Man comic. Yes, for all our audio listeners, I forget. There's audio listeners possibly. I read from Amazing Fantasy 15. For those of you who don't know. So, Mike, question I want to ask you for all the people here who may not know. I know your favorite anime movie is also your favorite film. So, and it's one of mine. So, talking about it, tell us what it is about that film that makes it your favorite as someone who's such a fan of this medium.
Okay, so I get to talk about the Prince of Egypt for the billionth time. This is I think this is probably the best example of why animation is my favorite medium and why this is my favorite film of all time. And it has to do with 2 things. One, just the animation itself is gorgeous. Every scene from like the opening musical number to the burning bush sequence, and even the parting of the Red Sea. Those are like very iconic moments, but also it's a musical, and animation and music just go together like bread and butter. And since music is kind of my secondary passion below film, it starts to make sense why I lean more heavily towards animation, because these two go back way back to like the 30s when Disney and Warner Brothers were putting out these basically music videos in front of like regular mainstream features.
Well, and then Walt went on and literally made a feature-length music video with Fantasia, so makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah, which is an incredible. If you've never seen Fantasia, it's 100% on Disney Plus. If not, um, it probably comes with one of those warnings that's just like stuff in this is not appropriate for today, which I think they just randomly slap onto every Disney film pre like 1990.
probably.
But Fantasia is incredible, particularly like there's so many great. Obviously, Sorcerer's Apprentice is like the most famous part for good reasons. It's incredible, but like to me, I think it's like Night on Bald Mountain, which leads into Ave Maria. It's just like every time you watch it, you're just like, oh my god, this is incredible. Like that movie is so great, and it doesn't have a story to it. That's the other thing. There's no like story to the like there's stories in the music, but there's no like overarching. It's not like Fantasia 2000 where they have like Bette Midler having to explain Salvador Dali to you in the middle. It's just like nah, just let the music and the animation tell a story. Like I said, Night on Bald Mountain is you have no lines. It's just the animation, the music is showing you the power of the devil until at the very end the light of God is the thing that stops him. And it's great. And it's just like no one says anything, but you can easily if you somewhat biblical, you were able to tell, and then that leads to Ave Maria because it's like, yeah, it's the light of everything. I'm sorry, we were talking about music and biblical things because obviously, for all two of you who don't know, although I should say the Prince of Egypt is it's the Torah, but that's our Old Testament, so we own it.
Yeah,
We stole it.
The Prince of Egypt is mostly based on the Book of Exodus, with Moses leading his people away from Egypt and into the Promised Land.
Yeah, and the movie's incredible. I mean, obviously, it was a telling that came after the Ten Commandments, which is one of the most famous movies of all time. I'm sure at the time, because DreamWorks, that was their second movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Ants was first. I know
Ants was first, but I think the
Prince of Egypt was second. I want to say it was their second movie. Could be wrong about that.
As far as I know, yeah, as far as I know, the Prince of Egypt has been in development like a little bit longer, but they had to rush out Ants really to compete with
we don't need to get into the did Jeffrey Katzenberg steal Bug's Life from John Lasseter, or did John Lasseter steal from Jeffrey Katzenberg? We don't need to get into this. You can love both for different reasons. Like Bug's Life is great and it's funny, but Ants has Stallone, so there's benefits to both films.
Exactly.
It's a better movie. I'm not trying to start fights with DreamWorks Ants here, but it is. Although if Stallone was in A Bug's Life, although who would he have played? Because Dennis Leary is the perfect Francis. Oh my lord! Me and Abe talked about that movie on Simple Chicks and Nonsense. And just the moment of just because I'm a ladybug obviously makes me a girl. Oh my god, she's a guy.
The delivery of that always cracks me up.
So perfect. But what I was saying was, from a new company to be like, we're going to be the next theatrical re-released version of the story of Moses after literally one of the most famous epics of all time that starred one of the most famous classic film actors, Charlton Heston. And they did it. And I think how they did it was they made their own animation epic. I mean, obviously the animation to some people's standard today is not up to par, but I mean, it's still breathtaking to look at. And I think to me, and look, Ten Commandments is, like I said, it is one of the great epics of film, but I think I've always preferred Prince of Egypt because it is a story of brothers, and that's something that Ten Commandments isn't. Like in Ten Commandments, once Moses is excommunicated, when he comes back, it's like him and Ramesses never like knew each other. Whereas here, it's like that's why I love like his first scene. Ramesses is so happy to see his brother, and he's like, "Yeah, any crimes today he's completely absolved of." But then Moses is like, "Yeah, I didn't come back to be with you. Actually, the exact opposite. I'm here to take all the slaves." And it's great because it's like Moses doesn't want to do it, but he's been called to do it. And you know, there are some animated movies that have celebrity casts that don't work.
Did I lose you?
Because this actor is popular. Oh, did I have your mic? Hello?
Yep.
Okay, see? This is why we're pre-recorded. So what was the last thing you heard me say?
You were talking about the celebrity voice cast.
Okay. So sometimes they'll like cast a famous person because this person is really popular, but they may not be good for the part. But in this movie, everyone's like perfectly like Val Kilmer totally sells the everyman who doesn't want to do this, but he knows it's his calling. Ray Fiennes is an incredible Ramesses. Jeff Goldblum and Sandra Bullock and Michelle Pfeiffer, like they're all incredible in this movie. And I think it's so, I don't want to say rare because there's a lot of good celebrity voice actors, but just like it's like Patrick Stewart as their dad at the very beginning of the movie is incredible, and his delivery of lines and the way it's just like, and of course the one line he says that comes back later, and you feel bad for Ramesses to a point. You feel bad for him to a point, and you feel bad for Moses because you're like, he doesn't want to do this, but he has to do this. And to me, one of the greatest, just not even just in animation, just in film in general, is When You Believe. Like that song is incredible. It is my favorite song on the soundtrack. It famously beat I Don't Want to Miss a Thing from Armageddon at the Oscars, and I'm fine with that. It's the only song I'm okay with beating I Don't Want to Miss a Thing from Armageddon. Do you have a favorite song on this? Do you say soundtrack or score? I say soundtrack.
For this, you can say soundtrack.
Okay. Yeah, I'm never sure because like to me, soundtrack is like Batman Forever, like Kiss from a Rose, like that's a soundtrack.
Yeah,
This
a score would be a score would just be like Michael Giacchino's Batman score.
Okay.
But to answer your question, my favorite song off the soundtrack is actually All I Ever Wanted.
Mm-hmm.
When You Believe is like either number 3 or number 4. My number 2 is the opening, Deliver Us, because it is an epic way to start. It sets the tone perfectly for the rest of the film going forward, and just showing like the hardships of the slaves at the time.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, it shows you why Moses needs to do what he needs to do, because that's the thing is like in any story telling of Moses, you have to really get across that like the slaves have a really bad life. That's why they need Moses. But continue with your favorite. Your favorite.
So number 1 is all I Ever Wanted. Number 2 is Deliver Us. Number 3, I think is Through Heaven's Eyes. That's one of those songs I listen to, and it does kind of make me feel a little emotional, and it's one of those reassuring songs that's like, you know, you're a part of something bigger. And I'm not personally really religious anymore. I was raised both Jewish and Catholic, but now that I'm now that I'm older, I'm less like religious, or I'm less tied to a specific religion and more I call it like spiritual. Like I believe there is a higher power out there in the universe, but I don't really subscribe to like kind of like the more bureaucratic elements of religion.
Have you ever seen Kevin Smith's Dogma? If not, you would really love Dogma.
I haven't seen the whole thing. I am due for a Kevin Smith marathon.
Because that movie, particularly the character Rufus, played by Chris Rock, I don't want to spoil it since you haven't really watched the whole thing, but just having what you said, you would really like Dogma and Rufus.
Nice.
But yeah, Prince of Egypt, it's incredible. If you're listening to us and you haven't seen Prince of Egypt, go watch Prince of Egypt. I'm not sure where it's streaming, but there's this thing called a library. Pretty certain your library in the kids section has a copy of Prince of Egypt.
And Universal, if you're listening to this, please put this on Blu-ray, or 4K.
How's it not on Blu-ray?
Right?
What are you doing over there? It's probably like 97 releases of Shrek on Blu-ray. You can't give us Prince of Egypt?
Like, maybe they'll do it for like the 25th anniversary, because I have noticed over the years that more people are discovering this movie for the first time. And that makes me really happy when like I'm kind of at least indirectly responsible for people finding or rediscovering the movie.
Yeah, for a long time growing up as a kid, I saw this movie once a year because of church. Every year, I mean, they still do it, but every year they have this like big, like, budgetary meeting and like what we're going to do. And obviously kids don't want to listen to that. So they take the kids off into the Sunday school room. And I guess it was like the only VHS that my church owned, because we watched Prince of Egypt every year. And I was totally like, all the other kids would start watching the movie and then divulge into play, and I'd just be like watching myself and it'd be like, gosh, that sounds a lot like Batman. But I don't think I made the connection that Val Kilmer was Moses and Batman Forever until much, much later. But yeah, is there any performance, because I talked about the performances of Val Kilmer, is there any performance in the movie, and you could talk about Val Kilmer Ray Fiennes if you want, that I haven't mentioned that you feel like should get a shout out? Or
well, one thing we haven't talked about yet is that Val Kilmer not only voices Moses, he's also the voice of God.
Yes.
And that's also kind of a page taken from the Ten Commandments, where Charlton Heston voiced both Moses and God.
Yeah, well, but you can't really tell it's Heston in Ten Commandments because they do so much like voice changing.
Yeah, this is just Kilmer's natural speaking voice.
But
and
there is an interesting thing you can take with that, which is, well, like, none of us know what God sounds like. Like, what if he sounds kind of like us? Like, that's how he talks through us, like, in a weird sort of way. Like, I've always enjoyed that, the Order of God. I'm like again, and whether that was their intention or not, it is just like, and that's the cool thing too about animation, which is voice work. It's just like, you just take your actor playing Moses and you have him do the voice, and now all of a sudden it presents this question, like, if you had Charlton Heston come in and play it, wouldn't raise? It's kind of like, if you've ever seen I'm asking you if you've ever seen an animated movie. I feel like the resounding answer is probably yes, but have you seen Batman Mask of the Phantasm?
Oh, of course.
Okay. Spoilers for a movie from 1992 or 1993.
93.
1993. Yeah, I remember because Warner Brothers was so quick to release it because it was the only year that Disney didn't have a movie. I remember that. But so you know how the Phantasm actually turns out to be Andrea Beaumont.
Yep.
But do you know who does the voice of the Phantasm in the movie?
That one always slips my mind.
Okay. I don't know the actor's name, but it is the same voice actor who plays Andrea's father in the movie.
Oh.
Because remember, there's the whole thing where Bruce thinks that the Phantasm is Andrea's father. So it's that cool thing that they're like kind of making you play into that by having the voice actor be both the voice of Andrea's father and the Phantasm. Because you're like, oh, well, maybe he's right. And again, that's something you wouldn't, because it doesn't sound the same, but that's something that if you look
By the way, the actor is Stacy Keach.
Stacy Keach. Good work. But I'm just like stuff like that. Like I'm just like when you go back and you know that you watch the movie again, you're like, wow, that is kind of helping to sell this sort of notion. Also, just like always, the one I don't want to say it's unfortunate, but I love Mask and Phantasm, one of my favorite Batman movies. But the fact that Dana Delaney went on to play Lois Lane, I sometimes can't not hear Lois Lane when I watch Mask of the Phantasm. It especially gets weird when you watch the Batman Superman movie and Lois and Bruce are kind of getting in a relationship. It's like, Is he dating her because he sounds like his like lost girlfriend? Like, is that why?
It's funny because I first saw Mask of the Phantasm like when I was a little bit older, and this was after like really familiarizing myself with like Superman the animated series.
Yeah.
So when I heard Andrea Beaumont for the first time, I was thinking, hey, that sounds an awful lot like Lois.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw Mask of the Phantasm. It was around the time that my family got like cable with like paid channels, and I remember it was just like HBO Kids or something. And I remember I was watching something before, but then it came on, and it was the first time I ever saw it, and it was just like, to this day, it is one of the, I mean, it's obviously a continuation of the show, but just like overencompassing, it's one of the greatest depictions of Batman ever.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty much up there. The other one that I go back to a lot is Under the Red Hood, which probably has my favorite animated voice of Batman, who's not Kevin Conroy, Bruce Greenwood.
Yeah, Bruce Greenwood. Am I pronouncing his last name right? I always feel like I screw it up. He is a great
that's right.
Batman. He is always a great bat. He was in what was it? Under the Gaslight? Is that the name of the movie? That it's like set in like the.
Oh, you mean Gotham by Gaslight?
Gotham by Gaslight. That's it. Yeah, that was a good one. He's another actor to where it's like I just hear Captain Pike from the Star Trek movies when I hear him as Batman. Yeah, Batman's had. I think Mask of Phantasm is definitely my favorite of his animated works, but Return of the Joker is also really great too.
That's another good one too.
Yeah, and I mean my favorite depiction of Joker will forever be Mark Hamill.
Oh, no question. Hamill like owns that role.
Because I was talking to my brother about this because his favorite is Heath Ledger. I said, look, Heath Ledger is really good, like chaos incarnate and all this, but I'm like, the Joker is supposed to be funny. Like, it's a crazy evil sort of funny, but he's still supposed to be funny. And that's Mark Hamill, because Mark Hamill's Joker, you will laugh at him, but then also he'll like immediately do something like really screwed up. Like the one of my favorite episodes is The Man Who Killed Batman. And when he's giving the eulogy, like it's hilarious, but then he's like, and we're gonna take that man there, put him into that box there, and send it into that Vatirasi there. Oh great, who wants Chinese? And you're like, okay, that's really funny, but he literally just said he's about to murder a man in acid. That's not funny.
Hamill's Joker is chaotic evil, and I think I think you kind of nailed that. Describing that scene from that episode, because 1 minute he'll go from mourning the loss of his greatest enemy to literally just pressing forward in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Without Batman anymore, life has no punchline. Yeah, oh my god. And also, one of the great things just about, to get back to animation, particularly in the 90s, the limitations of a kid show on Fox Kids or WB was Joker couldn't kill anybody, but that also kind of made him scarier because that's where the smiles came from, and you're like, no, that's actually kind of scarier than him just killing someone, is leaving this permanent, which is a build off of what Jack Nicholson's did in '89, but in that it killed them. Here, they're still alive in that state, and you're like, oh god, that's kind of worse,
right? It's funny how censorship in kids shows kind of accidentally make things scarier.
Yeah, it really does. It's an impressive workaround, and you're just like, yeah, but it's kind of more violent than if you just let him shoot him. But okay.
And the other thing about censorship, which the Animaniacs team has talked about, is how the reason they were able to slip in a lot of more risque jokes is they had to distract the censors with something big and totally unacceptable, but so they'll say no to that and then just kind of slip in the other stuff.
I think my favorite joke from Animaniacs, that is one of those types of jokes, is I remember the episode but they're looking for fingerprints.
Oh, yeah.
She brings in prints, and she's like, "No, I said fingerprints," and he's just like, and she's like, "Nope." Also, just hello, nurse. Just her entire character exists.
Yes.
It's one of those, but just that moment is just you don't hear it, you'll miss it, but it's such a perfect moment. And also, Matt Stone and Trey Parker with South Park just do that stuff all the time. I think my favorite story of that is apparently and I'm gonna get the numbers wrong, but apparently, according to the MBAA, which is the dumbest fucking rating system on the planet, a movie will be NC-17 if it contains 400 curse words. So South Park Big and Longer and Uncut contains 399.
I love that.
I love that story because Matt Stone and Trey Parker knew that and literally wrote this script, and they're like, okay, count all the curse words. We gotta be one below the it's just and mind you, that movie has so many worse things than curse words, and yet that's what and South Park is just, I mean, it's up there with Simpsons as one of the longest running animated shows, and it's just, I don't know about you if you're a fan, but I am, and it's still funny. It's so funny, and the best part is because the episodes take such little time to produce.
That's why there's a million of them.
That's why there's but also they're just able to respond to news events and things. And just pop culture, there's a great episode that came a week after Cloverfield came out, because Cloverfield was such a big movie. And then Randy Marsh is running around with his video camera, and they're doing Cloverfield. It's just I love South Park. I think we can also move into
I was gonna say
say what you need.
I can't remember exactly when I fell off of South Park, but in my opinion, I think the golden years are so somewhere between season 6 and season 10.
Mm-hmm.
Most of this stuff around the mid 2000s to 2010. That's when I was the biggest fan of that show. But one of these days I'll try to catch up to the more recent stuff, all the COVID specials. I've only heard nothing but positive things
The
about those.
two they did on Paramount Plus, where they're in the future, is oh my god, they're hilarious. They are so. There's a joke about Cartman and his job in that movie that even just thinking about, I don't want to spoil it, still makes me laugh. And Kyle's response to it, that is just incredible.
Oh boy.
Oh my god, yeah. It's I really hope they do more of those movies on Paramount Plus. Well, they're supposed to. I know there was like a whole deal they struck, but we should probably, if we're talking about animated families on TV, of which South Park is a weird family, gotta talk about Simpsons. I mean, like, one of the most famous animated shows of all time. Yes, we all know probably the newer stuff isn't very good, but who cares? It's still impressive that this show is still on the air.
Oh yeah.
But this is, I mean, I don't know about you. That, it's like that, Seinfeld, The Office, it's like shows that are just like on TV. I will just watch like 4 hours of The Simpsons on FX, like all the time, because it's so good. Because The Simpsons is great. Even bad episodes have great things in them.
I think that's the thing. People seem to exaggerate the decline in quality of The Simpsons based on the year that they graduated high school, or because like
Cut off,
the general consensus is that most people think either season 9 or season 10 is like when the show just took a nosedive in quality. And I'm not saying there aren't like genuinely bad episodes in those seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, like, you know, if you look hard enough, like you will find merit in the later seasons. And also I think the Simpsons movie that came out in 2007 is one of my favorite things.
It is. That movie. There are so many lines that I still quote from that movie. I was born to lead, not to read. Number 3. Just the moment when Flanders is pulling the board out to save them. It's like, come on, your dad would do the same thing for me. No, he wouldn't. All right, no. Bart doesn't even say anything. Just looks at him and is like, all right, just come on. But what about Grandpa? I'm part of the mob. Or the moment when Marge, I think she's getting like soda or something, but like the helicopter flies past, and then the 2 cops get out, and they're like walking up, and they just start making out. They go into the hotel room.
Wait, my favorite is you know, they draw a bunch of like mustaches and hair on like the wanted posters.
Yeah.
The police come in, a shot to the right. they show like the actual family.
The vet part. Or when they first get to Alaska, it's just like, here's $1,000 for us destroying your home. I love you, Canada.
Oh, and lest we forget Tom Hanks. Hi, I'm Tom Hanks. The U.S. government has lost all of its credibility, so it's borrowing some of mine.
Tom Hanks, can you touch my hair? Sure, little guy. When they find the like multi-eyed squirrel, jab. One more eye, it's a federal crime. There's so many jokes in that movie that I'm thinking about right now. That movie is so funny, and I remember when I first saw it, there's that moment when Marge and the family have left Homer, and she leaves the video for him, and he runs out, and he falls on the like glacier, and it's like a heart, and it breaks, and it goes to be continued. I just remember being like, wait, what? And then it's just like immediately. Yeah, the Simpsons movie, I think, I don't want to say that's like peak, because there's a lot of cool stuff that followed after, but like it is such a good movie. If you haven't seen the Simpsons movie in a while, because it was like a huge movie when it came out, so you probably saw it if you were around. I mean, I was in elementary school and I still saw it. because it's just like a big movie. It has a lot of merit to it. It is a great movie. Are there any other like movies or TV shows that you want to talk about, Mike? Just because I know you watch so many of these animated things.
Man, where to even begin? I guess we can kind of talk about a few big Netflix titles, like because the Annie Awards were a couple nights ago. I have to ask: have you seen Arcane?
No, I don't watch a lot of new stuff, as my Take 3 friends know. I mostly watch old shit, so probably not.
All right. Well, Arcane is a show based on League of Legends, or based on the character descriptions from League of Legends, but the show itself takes these ideas and just completely fleshes them out into something like better than a lot of even live action shows. It's 9 episodes, and this was animated by a French studio called Forteach Productions, and it just looks gorgeous. Like the animation style is like it's like a little mix of 2D and 3D. It's like it was like mostly animated with like 3D, but it looks like a painting come to life, and it is just it's just incredible. That's one of the most recent shows that like I would recommend to almost anyone.
Yeah, well, when it comes to recent animated things, I'd be remiss to this episode not mention. There's these landmarks in cinema people talk about: Gone with the Wind, Casablanca, The Godfather, and then there's a peak on top of the peak, and that was in 2016 when we were introduced, when we were blessed, even though we didn't deserve it. We were given Boss Baby.
3 hours later.
When you get to the midpoint of the movie, of which we are still talking about, and I'm sorry, the producers are telling me I can't talk about it. I'm sorry, Mike. We can continue on to something else. I'll talk about Boss Baby another time, unless you want to talk about the brilliance of Boss Baby.
Actually, we could at least talk about the controversy that I kind of drummed up around the time of the first movie.
What? I don't think we knew each other back then, but what controversy did you show up about Boss Baby?
It's nothing too it's nothing too notorious, but
okay.
it was one of my earliest 5 out of 5 reviews that I genuinely gave to that movie. But I also happened to publish that review on April Fool's Day.
So
the timing was a little off. But I still stand by that review because
good.
While there are like certain outside circumstances that may leave a sour taste in some people's mouth surrounding the Boss Baby, and when it was released, I still think just purely from an animation standpoint, this movie absolutely holds up, and it's kind of another great example of like the occasional blending of different different mediums. Like in a lot of the dream sequences, they use a lot of like 2D elements with the 3D animation, and this is always like the stuff I really hone in on. That, and they also use Blackbird by the Beatles a couple times, and as a Beatles fan, you got me.
Yeah. It also does that thing I love when you have movies about small children, which is there's like an epic chase in the police car, and then it comes to the parents, and it's just like extremely slow moving. It's great. I always love, Rugrats was one of those that did that all the time, to where the kids would be in this giant temple, and then you pull back and they'd be in the refrigerator. Like it's stuff like that I always appreciate. And Rugrats, I think, is also one of my favorite animated shows. That was just a great adventure show, but it also was like, no, they're not actually doing this. They're just in the sandbox right now.
Although, can we talk about the Rugrats movie? How that was
that's one of the greatest pieces of cinema ever. Yes,
and how was surprisingly one of the darkest movies about a group of babies.
The moment when Tommy is he's broken, he's done. His friends have left him, and he's just like, oh, you want monkeys? I'll give you monkey. And he's got the banana, and he knows that if he drops this on Dill, the monkeys are gonna take him. And it's like the thunder and the lightning, and you're like, oh my no! But then he can't do it. That movie, I don't know about your family situation. I am an older brother. I'm 2 years younger than my brother. 2 years older than my brother. I know that feeling. I relate to Tommy in that movie. I get it. And so that movie hits me, especially now growing up, in a different way. But yeah, it's dark. The wolf in that movie is scary.
Oh yeah.
And Spike gets his hero moment, and it's incredible. And if someone, actually, I think I've seen it on TikTok, someone took Hero from Spider-Man 2002 and edited it into that scene, and it is brilliant. But that movie, too, that moment when they think they've met the wizard, because the whole thing in the movie is they're searching for this wizard because Tommy
and they call him the lizard because they're babies.
Because Tommy, his parents read him a story to where this little boy gets one wish, and the whole time they're like, we're gonna use this wish to get home, but then Tommy's holding Spike's dog tag. He's just like, just want our dog back. And I'm like, oh my god, that movie is so good. The animation is great. Yeah, that movie's incredible. And it's I was talking to my sister about that movie the other week, and I'm like, genuinely emotional. Genuine emotion is in that movie. And also, it does have a great, we were talking about Animaniacs, it also has a great adult line that you wouldn't catch from your kid, which is Angelica's mom is talking to Tommy's mom about the baby and about what they think the sex is going to be, and she's like, well, you know what they say, born under Venus, born with a, and then her phone starts ringing, she picks it up. And then there's Rugrats in Paris. Was this? I think they only did two. There was only Rugrats.
They did three. The second one was Rugrats in Paris. The third one was
the Wild Thornberrys one. That's right.
Yeah,
I didn't see that one.
I watched that one recently through one of the watch-alongs that PJ did.
Yeah.
And that was the one movie of the trilogy that we just didn't like.
Rugrats in Paris is awesome still.
Oh, I love Rugrats in Paris.
Here
I think
comes Chucky Chan. Here comes Chucky Chan. And you want another movie that breaks you? I Want a Mom Who Can Last Forever. I'm lucky enough. My mom is still with me, but you still can cry when you listen to that song. You feel bad for Chucky. You're like, dude, all he wants is a mom. And at the beginning of the movie, when the moms are all dancing, Chucky's by himself. But then at the end of the movie, he has a mom he can dance with. You're like, oh my god. Also, that movie introduced all his kids to The Godfather, except we didn't know it was The Godfather at the time.
Yep.
It's brilliant. And it's also great because Angelica's parents are talking. She's like, I can't believe you let her watch that movie. That was only one scene. I'm sure he barely even remembers it. And then it gets her just be like, I'm going to make one up and you can't refuse. That's great. Oh, man. Those first two movies, I still own them on the orange VHS tape, and I'll still put them in every so often. I don't have the boxes, but I got the orange VHS tape. Which that was Nickelodeon had some hold on orange VHS tapes, because Nickelodeon was the only company that could release a movie on an orange VHS tape.
Because that was their thing. That was their color.
it's just incredible. But yeah, Rugrats is great. There's so many great animated things that are for children that you go back to. You're like, no, that's just all. Foster's is one of those too. Like Foster's is a great show. That's just like, yeah, you have an imaginary friend because you need a friend, and it's good to have that thing. Like it's very important for kids to have imaginations.
Speaking of Craig McCracken, another newer recommendation is it's another Netflix show, Kid Cosmic. It's a different approach to like superheroes, but basically this kid finds this ring of power that came from somewhere in outer space, and he and his friends form like a little superhero group, and they go around fighting crimes. In the show kind of like escalates. The first season is they're just like the local heroes. In season 2, they get ported into outer space, and then season 3 is like the grand finale.
Interesting. So a bunch of kids with magic rings become a team. Sounds a lot like Captain Planet.
Sort of.
Does Don Cheadle make an appearance?
Unfortunately, no.
Now I'm thinking about is which is no, I'm not even gonna mention it. But Captain Planet, that is a show I didn't grow up with, but I saw later on. I'm like, oh my god, this is really stupid, but it's also really funny. It's not intentionally trying to be.
Oh, it's it's a show.
Poor Monty. Everyone else gets these cool elemental powers. It's just like hard. It's like Wheeler can barely speak English, man, and he gets fire? No, Wheeler's the best. You know why? Because she comes from New York. He's the best member of the team. And I just slip into Minnie. That's a joke for Take-3 viewers. Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, the animation has been around for so freaking long. There's so many different avenues we could go down. Is there anything else as we start to get into the sort of wrap up time? I guess there's no continuity to my programming. But is there anything else you really want to talk about before we start wrapping up?
I think the last thing that we can talk about is kind of the future of animation. I have my general ideas outside of, you know, better working conditions, and just better overall quality of life for the people behind the scenes.
That goes without saying.
Yeah,
like we wish that for the film industry in general, that all the people who are working and putting in the hard work should really be compensated for their work, for providing us entertainment.
Exactly.
Okay, studios, get on it.
But the question I was going to ask is like, is there anything that you want to see with the medium in terms of any sort of advances in technology, or maybe just new stories that we haven't seen yet?
That's a great question. When it comes to advances, I think that's not something you can really ask for, because that is the technology that is around, or the technology that people are willing to build, and that really comes down to, the George Lucases and the John Dykstra's sort of guys, the Dennis Mirans, who are just able to sit there and be like, yeah, I know we've been doing it like this for a bit, but we, it's like the Wonder Woman 84 meme. Life is good, but it could be better. So I don't know anything about that. And as for stories to be told, I hope the medium just continues to. And again, I think there's a great thing to where there is animation that's strictly for adults. You know, a lot of I know anime is very like you do not show your kids this. But I think just continuing to make these brilliant family movies, and family movies are films that kids and adults can watch and get stuff out of. My number 4 favorite movie of all time and my favorite anime movie of all time is The Iron Giant. And it's my favorite because when I was a child, I loved it. But now, as an almost 25-year-old man, I can watch that movie and it still has a lesson in the movie that is so vitally important, which is it does not matter what other people think of you. The only thing that's important is what you think of you. You are who you choose to be. It is on the short list of movies that I cry at. I watched it a couple weeks ago, and I know it's coming, and still every time I still cry because it's just such and that is like that's the beauty of film in any medium is when it has that hold over you that you're like, I know this is coming, but I still feel it, and that's the beauty of animation is like that was one of the first movies I was introduced to, and it's still with me to this day. So just keep making great family movies like Boss Baby 3.
Yeah, what you were saying about the like moments that you know are coming but still hit you anyway. Every time I watch the ending of Aladdin, like I know that scene is coming when the genie is set free and has to say goodbye. But especially ever since Robin Williams passed away, I can't get to that moment without shedding a tear. And I know this has been about animation, but I'm looking at your Back to the Future shirt, and I am terrified of the day that Christopher Lloyd eventually passes away, because that will destroy me if I ever go back to watching part 3.
What his last line?
Yeah.
Your future is whatever you want to make of it. So make it a good one. Both of you. I honestly thought you were like, I'm terrified of Back to the Future the animated series. I can't watch it. And I was like, it's not that bad.
Oh no, I love the animated series. I do wish it was like more readily available.
It's on DVD, which I'm surprised they did. It's I'll say this. His kids annoy the hell out of me in most episodes. And I'm annoyed that there's not a lot of Doc and Marty centric episodes. And that's Marty's my favorite character, and he's the main character of the trilogy, but for some weird reason, when they made the show, they were like, nah, this is about the Brown family. And Marty's here. Like, Jennifer is in like 2 episodes of the series.
That's always been weird. But getting back to what I want from the future, really what I want to see moving forward is, I just want to see companies like Pixar, DreamWorks, and to a lesser extent Sony, because they're just already constantly innovating with movies like Into the Spider-Verse and The Mitchells vs. the Machines. But I want to see other of like the mainstream studios like not take their foot off the gas and just continue to push the medium forward. And I'm kind of hoping Illumination gets up there as well. You know, say what you will about, you know, like the Minions movies or Secret Life of Pets, but I genuinely think they have like the potential to put out something great, like when Blue Sky in 2015 did the Peanuts movie. That was something that kind of took everyone by surprise, and that is still to this day their best film to date.
I've not gotten around to it, unfortunately. And I love the Peanuts. I just haven't gotten around to it. It's one of those things.
I think you would love it.
Probably, because I still love the Peanuts. I still watch those specials every year. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I hope the studios keep just improving. That's all we want. That's all we want from our films. So, Mike, at the top of the show, you already sort of did it. But is there anything on the interwebs that you do that you want to let the kids know, where they can follow you, where they can find you, and hear you talk more about everything?
So mostly you can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. If you just want to read like my quick thoughts on new releases, you can check out my letterbox. That's letterbox.com/Coach K42. And you can also just find me on all the various Facebook groups, just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also look for us on Podchaser and a new kind of website called the Banana Meter. It's kind of like Rotten Tomatoes, but without the corporate backing. And you can listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And as I said before, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we.
Ooh, just plug it yourself with your own catchphrases and everything. You guys, as always, can follow me at Curtains_Matthew on Twitter, MattMovies611 on YouTube, and right here as host of the Fandom podcast, Second Look, and Simple Tricks and Nonsense, which hopefully this year will be coming, all three will be coming back in a bigger, badder way. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can, in the description of this video, you can find the link to the audio version on Anchor. And if you're listening to this on Anchor, go to Secret Productions, subscribe, and you can watch us or watch any of the other great programs that are on this channel. Mike, this was an incredibly fun conversation about a medium of film. This is the first time that I've ever had a very wide topic, but it was a lot of fun. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, share it around. Word of mouth really helps us out. So thank you all for listening, and remember to keep loving shit. Take care.